Hey there, friends. So, among the things I've been doing lately is doing a lot of reading, and I have a couple books on my desk that I've finished with, and some that I'm in process with. But one of the ones that I sort of stumbled on really this year, and I don't even know how I found it. I found it on Amazon, but I don't know where I initially was prompted to notice it. But it's Tony. I hope I'm pronouncing this right, but Tony Poole's the Card Geeks, excuse me, the Card Geeks Guide to Kipper Cards, and her deck that goes along with it. And so I've read through this book, and I got the deck only a couple days ago. So the book looks like it's printed by CreateSpace. So if you order it on Amazon, it comes pretty quickly. The deck itself, I believe, is coming from Germany, where she's located, and I ordered them within a few days of each other, but this took maybe 2 weeks to come in. So I thought I would talk about the book, talk about the deck, and then compare it to the original Kipper cards. There's a lot that I want to share with you about this book, because the first thing I want to say is I really think it's good. Like anything else, there's some things I wish were a little different, but that's inevitable, right? This is a really good book, though. Now, you have to sort of take this with a grain of salt to a degree, because I am not knowledgeable about Kipper. I bought the original Kipper card deck moons ago because I saw the images and I thought they were cool. And then I promptly went through it and said, oh, these are cool. And then I put them on the shelf. And then I gamely, tried to learn Lenormand, struggled, stumbled on Sibylla, and found like a simpatico with that. And I think in some ways this year is going to be like the year of cartomancy or cartomantic systems for me. After sort of achieving really, or coming close to achieving my really big goal last year tarot wise. I'm sort of like, okay, what can I learn now? What can I do to my methods now? So the first things I want to say are that I really like this book. The second thing I have to say is that I'm coming at it from the point of view of someone who does not have a background in Kipper. The third thing to say is that that's not necessarily a bad thing as a reviewer, because I feel like, if I can share with you the fact that I've learned something from this book as someone who didn't know already, then that's a good sign, right? Because that's what books should do. So let me put these aside for a second and just talk about the book in particular. There are some things that she teaches in this book, and I should say she also has a YouTube channel, and she's got a lot of lessons and a lot of sort of supplementary material that complements and even sort of highlights what's in this book. So you should probably go to her channel. I'm not going to demonstrate, excuse me, any of the techniques in particular that she shows in this book. I try to avoid doing that, and one reason why I don't review a lot of books is because I don't want to, infringe on anyone's like skill on their work, right? I want to show you one thing that I think is really cool that I learned from this book, which is how cards have different links, and the way that I've sort of been inspired to work with a spread in her book. What I'm not going to do, though, is show the specifics of the linkages. So let me sort of talk through how this works, right? So what I like about this book is that it's based around the idea of learning, and there's a lot of samples in it. I saved too. This is like the little white book for her deck. We can come back to that. So it's like a nice big book. It is self-published. It's got a nice introduction, a little background on Kipper, and then it teaches you the structure of the book. So they'll have some tips throughout that are sort of labeled with the Card Geek icon. It talks about sort of the kinds of questions you should ask the deck, traditional Kipper keywords, and then this is the thing that I want to talk a little bit about. So there are in her system types of cards. So there are start and direction cards. There are stop cards, which are like a punctuation mark. There are movement cards, which show things moving. Connector cards, and then cause and effect. So I'm going to show you sort of like what that looks like. But what I'm not going to do is tell you what those are. I'm going to show you how I kind of am experimenting with that skill. But I think that it's really, this to me is like, this section alone, sort of the pages 12 through 14 to me are kind of like a really interesting, it's sort of worth the book because I haven't seen this anywhere. And then the other nice thing that I really like about the book is that she goes through each card then, and she talks about, like, if it's a person, who would it be, what the basic meaning is. She talks about the idea of auspicious and inauspicious, which I think you can see a video on her channel. Keywords, early instructions, sort of like old-fashioned instructions, and then her meaning, and also then within the category of different things. So the card is broken up by love, work, technology, health, practical, finding lost objects, character descriptions, locations, a daily meaning, and timing. So another thing that she does too that's interesting is she talks about like how it's different from cards that are frequently, how each card is different from cards that are frequently associated with it. Then she goes through the cards. Now, the first criticism I have of the book is actually that there's a lot of pictures of the cards in it, but they're tiny. It's next to impossible to see what they are unless you actually have her deck. Now, she most of the time does tell you what they are, but it's just, you sort of want to see, especially because directionality is important. You kind of wish that you had more, visual bump there. So, if she ever does a second edition, I think I would entreat her to make the card images larger, even though that makes up more space. And then she goes through like the character relationships, what it means when they're facing, when they're not, when they're above, beyond, below, etc. And then you get into, again, the rest of the cards. And so the bulk of the book is really just going through the different card meanings. To give you an example here, this is the 10, which is journey. And then, so she'll say that, it's not a person, right? There's no person character trait associated with this, excuse me. If it's placed in an auspicious position, it suggests a new start or fortunate travel. If it's inauspicious, difficult start, difficult travels, it's a movement card. And she talks a lot about directionality in this book and sort of how, like in the journey card, it's a movement card. So it's moving from whatever is on its bottom left up to whatever's on its top right, because it has this diagonal movement. So it's sort of, and actually I think in this case, yeah, she takes the two cards below it. So she goes through that, then she'll tell you her experience of the card. If it's a significator, what would you use it for? So, in a love reading, for example, she would say, it's anything from a honeymoon, a development in the relationship, or a move away from a marriage. The cards around it should be studied to ascertain in which way this journey is affecting the client's life. And it's interesting the way she categorizes them. For example, technology. She says, this card could represent anything that facilitates the moving of data or traffic, so it could suggest like a GPS, for example. And that's the case across the board. And then when you get through that, this sort of second half of the book is about actually now reading. So she takes you through her way of looking at the readings. Who are the people in it, and what are they doing, and where are they looking? And then some relational examples. For example, if the main character one, the main man he's facing to the right, if anything behind him suggests something that's what she calls inauspicious or sort of difficult. So, if his partner, the main female, were behind him, that placement is inauspicious, meaning there's problems in the relationship, for example. So she talks about the relationships of like where characters are looking and what they're looking at. She talks about the stop cards. She talks about then the basic flow of reading and creating a narrative. A lot of this I really respond to because a lot of it's very similar to how I read tarot. So we have some synchronicity in that regard. Not entirely, but close in a lot of ways. And then she gets into some spreads. So she's got a 3-card daily spread. She's got a cross spread, and this is sort of a really nice simple spread. And this I think I can try to demonstrate without sort of infringing on her work at all. Keeping in mind that I'm just sort of experimenting with this. She does talk about reading for health in this book, and she, a lot of places in the world that's not uncommon. I don't do it because I talk about this in my own book. I feel like if people are coming to me and nobody ever asks, I think I've gotten like one request in recent years, and they said, you probably don't do this, but so. Then there's a cross spread, not a cross spread, sort of a 9-card spread, which is different from looking at the kind of 9-card spread that you'll see me talk about in my Sibylla videos, for example. There's like a position, which I think is really interesting. Again, I don't want to sort of give away all the juicy details, but, the top row talks about thoughts, the bottom row talks about feelings, for example. And then again, sort of based on where they're looking, she's looking to the left. So the things that are in front of her are kind of good. The things that are behind her are kind of a struggle, or they're hidden. And she does examples of each of these spreads. She's got this thing called the Path of Seven, which I think is similar to the airstrip spread that Kelly demonstrated in her videos. Another reading with the significator card, excuse me, rather than the main character in the center. So, for example, if you wanted to do a reading about finding a house, you could put the house in the middle and then read it that way. And then she gets into this is the thing that I thought was really cool that I want to sort of show a little bit, just because I really was excited about this. It's basically taking a cross spread but using the kinds of cards to add additional cards and then thus more meaning into the spread. And I'll just show you that because I think it's really cool. There's a lot of really great spreads in here, to be honest with you. I think it's again, it's like the spread section is really good. The stop cards reading, similar in a way to what Kelly demonstrated in the master method. And again, I don't want to sort of reveal all the secrets of the book, but I think this is the spread that she says it is used and used more often than the grand tableau for sharp on the point reads. And this was another spread that I really thought was worth buying the book for. And then she gets into the grand tableau, and the grand tableau is I mean, this section is long. It starts on page 159. And really goes for quite a long time. 214. So, almost like a fourth of the book, is a quarter of the book is the Grand Tableau. It's very different from what I've read about Lenormand Grand Tableaus. There are some similarities, but it's different, and the houses are actually kind of like the way the houses are described, kind of really nice. So she goes through a long list of helpful techniques, and there's a lot. I mean, reading a Grand Tableau in this style, I think, could take quite a long time, where the Lenormand Grand Tableau seems to be something that can be read relatively quickly. So there's a lot, and then there's some more spreads in the back, like yes or no questions. There's a House of Fate spread. And then there are some like summaries in the back. Some notes on the quotes that she included in there. So, oops, this is just nonsense. So that's the book, and I think again, I think it's really successful. It's the kind of it's the kind of book that I think is useful to read from. I'm not a lover of like having to sit and memorize definitions, so I wish there were some exercises in there to help you kind of internalize the meanings of the cards. That to me would be a really useful teaching tool. As you know, I'm a believer in finding ways to manifest your own internalization of card meanings. If I had one criticism of the book besides the size of the images in it, I always get sort of prickly and bristly about the idea of like, this is the real way. And that you do get the sense of, in this book, like, this is the real way. Now, in her defense, she lives in Germany. She lives in Bavaria, where the Kippers originated, and she learned from people who have learned, who come from that area. But the thing that interests me, actually, I was just looking the other day at a series of cards that aren't in print, but they're little sort of carte de visite type cards. They're little playing cards, essentially, but they are almost identical to the cards that are in Kipper and Sibylla. There's a few of them in existence. And it just once again reinforced the idea to me of all of these systems kind of came out of similar systems, and to me there's no real, so I always get a little prickly about that. But that aside, you know what I mean, there's a lot of experience in this book, and so I overlook that little pet peeve of mine. And unlike other books I've read where I have the real, I quote, have the real answers, she's sharing them with you. It's not, I have the real answers, and for $9.99 a month, you can learn them. So, I think this is, it's a really good book. It's really smart. It's humorous. It's got a very conversational tone. Just really fun to read. Do wish the pictures were bigger, but that's a small quibble. And if you have a Kipper deck, you don't necessarily need to see them if you lay out the ones she's suggesting. What else should I say about this book? I think it's really good. And I'm excited to be exploring it. And even I feel like I did absorb a lot, even though sort of sitting and memorizing is not my forte. So I recommend it from my point of view. And then I thought I would show you her deck and compare it to the original one. Now she has on her channel, these cards, and she's got a very old, sort of early, potentially like early edition Kipper card deck, that has the original placement. Evidently, there's some evidence she's shared that the cards, when they were reprinted at some point, ended up facing the other way. So the facing of characters, the placement of characters is really important, because it tells you, sort of like what's actively helping them and what's hurting them in their lives right now. So, but I thought it would be cool just to sort of look. So you'll notice that all the people and most of the direction cards are facing the different way. But this is the original, obviously, and this is her deck. I gotta say, I really like the original deck a lot. There's something about it that I find really charming. Artistic wise, it's similar to the Sibylla, the Everyday Oracle deck. But there's something that's just a little bit, it's printed in a very similar, lithography, I think, and it looks very similar in style to like older Rider-Waite-Smith editions. There's something about this deck that I find more alluring on the eyes. You know what I mean? The Kipper, the Sibylla deck while I read, I really enjoy reading with it, it's not the prettiest deck. So, anyway, let's take a look. So, the Card Geek deck is very modern. I don't traditionally... I don't... It's like, I'm not off-put by it. It just feels like there's a weird thing when something's really modern where it feels like it's... I don't know what the word is. Like, it doesn't have like a history to it or something. I don't know. It's odd. But I do like it a lot. I really like the backs. I think they're really pretty. But for a deck that's pretty modern, I think it's nice, and they're pretty much the same size. This is plain cardstock. This is a little bit thicker. Now these are a little harder to get. I did find these at I think on Amazon through an American bookstore that had them, and they actually came in this plastic case, and the deck came with a title card, which I think I threw away, and a bunch of instruction cards, but they were all in German. I did write the English names on the side, and I was sort of nervous about it because this is it wasn't easy to get this deck, but I actually don't mind the way it looks, and it does help. These are happily in English, which is wonderful. The other thing you'll note as you go through is that I drew little symbols on the cards, and that they correspond to the type of card that it is in the book. So whether it's a cause and effect card, a movement card, a linking or a connecting card. And I found that really helpful. And again, it doesn't bother me much. In fact, it's really useful as I'm sort of looking at the spread that I'm going to show you. So here's the main dude. And then here's the main woman. Now you can see in both decks they face each other, but again, they're facing the opposite way because in theory, they originally were facing the opposite way. So here's the marriage card. Some of the titles are different too, and some of them I prefer in one deck over the other. Here's the courtship card. So you can see there's some similarities, you know what I mean? Obviously it's people in t-shirt and jeans, but you've got the little Cupid there. And so there's some nice tips of the hat to, this is the good gent or the older gent, the good man. And here's the good lady or the older woman. The letter. And this is, in this deck, dishonesty, in this deck, false person. And I think she changed the name to dishonesty in this deck because technically it's not a person card. It doesn't represent a person. It represents dishonesty or wrongness. Here's the change card. And here's the journey card. And again, you can sort of see that they're moving. So these are movement cards. Win lots is what she calls it. Here's the rich girl. Every time I see this card now, because she talks about it in her book, the song, "You're a rich girl," gets stuck in my head. Here's the rich gent. These are examples, excuse me, boy, I really cannot shake this cold. These are examples of cards that are sometimes people and sometimes not. Same thing with the good lord or the good man and the good woman, the good gent and the good lady. Sad news. This is good outcome. His thoughts. I wrote thoughts on it. Actually, in the other Kipper deck I have, the fin de siècle, the Tiro Marchetti deck, it's just called thoughts. And because it's not a person, it's a little bit more, it does seem that the generic is it makes a little bit more sense to me. But here's gift, very similar in a way. Child. She calls this fatality. This, is death, coffin, whatever. The word fatality sort of I'm not a huge fan of. It feels so, grim, which it's not always. Here's the house. You get a very modern house there. Living room, again, a very modern living room. Here's the military person or official person. The court. Theft. High honors. This is great fortune. Unexpected money. Expectations. So this is one where, like in the German version, this sort of has a very anxious look to it. This one doesn't, so it's an interesting thing. Prison. Court official. Illness. This is another one where, you know, and she talks about this in the book, where this is also the sex card. I actually kind of wish that she had recreated the malady or the sickness card or illness card, because again, it can be sex, and one of the reasons why is because there's two people sort of in a bed there. So, you know, I kind of wish that it had been that, but again, it's fine. This is sorrow. Gloomy thoughts. Work. This is long way, or yeah, it's long way. I wrote both that, same one on both. And then finally, hope, great waters. And in fact, I think the back of the card is actually like a pixelization of this, which I think is really cool. So that is just a comparison of the two. Like directionally, they face the opposite way, but as she says in the book, just whatever deck you have, you know, work with whatever direction they're facing. Since this is a review of her deck, or her deck and book, I'm gonna use this for the example. So again, one reason, and I'm not gonna kind of give away all the secrets of this, actually. So as I've been practicing this, I tend to do the Lenormand thing of shuffling the significator cards in rather than pulling it out first and then putting the cards around it. That's actually not what she does in the book. So in the book, I'm gonna use the way she does it. But I tend to sort of like shuffle the guy in, look for the 4 cards before and after, and do that. But so you pull your main character that represents the person that you're rooting for. And then you shuffle the deck. Whoopsie. And it's cardstock that is like playing cardstock, so it shuffles like playing cardstock. And so you should be... there should be no concern about shuffling it. So the reason that I want to show you this one in particular is just I think it's a cool example of why the uniqueness of this book, at least in my experience, is interesting. So you draw the cross around. Hopefully this will be a good example. It's not really, of course. I'll pull another one. But essentially, what you do is you look... I'm going to take a little cough drop here. Thank you, Halls. Is you look for the kinds of cards you have around you, and if you have a connecting card, a cause and effect card, or a movement card, what you want to do is sort of add cards that sort of are positioned here. So this is a cause and effect card. This is fatality. This is a cause and effect card. It's expectation. And you sort of do it until you get a stop card. And actually what I did for the stop cards was I just literally put a little dot because they represent a period. So this is not like the most sexy example. I'll pull another one that will hopefully be more interesting. But because these cards are cause and effect cards, and again, this isn't necessarily 100% what she does in the book. I'm just sort of as I do, experimenting in my way. So you look at the cards to sort of see where you would add additional cards into the equation. A stop card is like a punctuation mark, so it stops. This is stop, this is stop, this is stop, this is stop. This was a cause and effect card. So I drew another one. So in essence, there's like a relationship between, like, this is causing this, right? This is the effect of these causes, so to speak. And then, so you would read this in terms of, like, here's what he's thinking about, here's what he's feeling. This is an inauspicious placement. It's behind, excuse me, gosh. It's behind him. This doesn't help because I've been making a lot of videos today because I have the time to do it. So this is actually something that, while this stuff is all negative in front of him, for the most part, it's actually auspicious, meaning that this is something that's easily overcome, even though they're negative. This is something that's niggling at him. You know what I mean? So it's not a great thing. You know, it's sort of inauspicious. Now, because it's technically a character, you could sort of, I think, and again, just, you know, I'm going with what makes sense to me. You could draw another card to see what he's looking at. But again, that's, you know, I don't quite remember that that's the thing. Again, I've only read the book once, and I've been sort of playing with it when I have time. But so then you would do the reading. And so, you know, you definitely have this thing in front of him of, like, there's an ending that's really causing him some, it seems like he's getting caused with some anxiety. Now, again, it's like, what you probably could do, because she's looking up, and the directionality, what they're looking at, kind of matters. You know, again, you could sort of draw a card to look at where she's looking. So, like, he's facing something that's ending, and he has these really stuck in this, like, in his mind, but ultimately, like, what he's expecting is something really good. And he's actually feeling like he's really fortunate, because this is his feelings. But sort of behind and above him, what's on his mind is a sort of like a legal battle and a military person behind him. So he's probably had someone, like a boss potentially, or someone in a really official capacity that he's had to cut ties with. You know, in fact, that sword really kind of makes that clear. It's ended, but actually it sort of is handleable. But this is sort of bugging him, like, whatever this represents. So that's one example. Let me just show you again. I'll use the female significator this time. I just like the idea of sort of drawing the cross from the deck, and then you know, adding more cards based on the way they're looking and where they're positioned, to, you know, really sort of flesh out based on the specific issue. Excuse me. I had one more video I think I was going to make today, but I may just hold off because clearly my body is sick of talking. Oops, I forgot to take the lady out. Let's get her out of there. There she is. So now she's looking this way. Whatever's on the right of her will be, quote, inauspicious. So we draw the cross. Oops, as always. So this is another example where there's not a lot to add, so I may mix this up. But so the only one here is a movement card, and so I would put that there. You know, so there's she's expecting a gift of, you know, so there's a gift on her way of money, so she's gonna just make a little money. You know, interestingly, there's a good outcome behind her, which is inauspicious. So this is a good outcome too. This may be a good thing, but it may not actually be ideal for her. And clearly there's some anxiety in her head, although she feels really good. So it's sort of interesting. Let me shuffle again. This is the thing. I wanted to take some pictures for Instagram to sort of show this. And every time I drew, it didn't yield a very sexy picture. And now that I want to show you, of course, I'm going to not get very sexy examples. And again, it's worth cautioning, I'm sort of taking this based on what I remember from the book and adapting it based on, you know, my own, the way I remember things. So this isn't exactly what she did, you know, full disclosure, but it's similar. And I think, again, she has a lot of videos that you can explore the, you know, the right way, not the way that I remember it. So she's still using the same cards. But we have a little bit more cause and effect here. All right, so we've got a cause and effect card here, so I'm going to put this one here. That's a stop card. This is a cause and effect card, so I'm going to put that there. This is a movement card, but it's moving down into it. So it's moving here. So again, sort of behind her is interesting because it seems like it's the same reading. She's still thinking about the same thing. She's still stressed. This gift is actually sad news, but it's unexpected money. So this sort of like good thing behind her, maybe, sad news might be like an inheritance or something, so she may get news that she's getting money because someone she cares about or someone in her life has sort of moved on, or for some other thing, like a foreclosure or something. So there's that. But she's also, in an auspicious sense, she's expecting sorrow, but in fact, she'll actually wind up pretty comfortable. So, like, this is one of those take the good with the bad things. So, let me try one more. Let me use the other deck just so you can see the original Kipper card deck. Whoopsie. So I'll shuffle this up. Let's take the character out. Oh, he's probably at the beginning, right? Because, yes. I always say that if that guy were bald, he'd look just like me. So you can see why I drew those little symbols on the cards, because otherwise you have to memorize them. And again, memorizing, not my favorite thing. This is a way to just sort of very subtly, I think, figure out what's what. And I find that helpful. So now our dude is facing left. So what's in front of him is auspicious, and what's behind him is inauspicious, or not helpful, or not good. So let's see if we can get a more interesting pattern here. Again, and when I do this, sometimes I don't even just do the cross. I do a full 9-card complement. So, all right. So again, we're sort of in the same boat again. There's a stop card. Here's a cause and effect card. So again, this is what he's thinking about. This is what he's feeling. So the feeling, the rich girl may actually feel he may feel sort of like lovely right now. He may feel sort of flirty and fun because he's expecting some good stuff. Although coming his way are some gloomy thoughts, but again, that'll be probably affected by something good that comes beyond it. And then there's something, in his immediate environment that's bugging him. So anyway, you get the sense. I haven't had a single, let me actually force the deck a little bit here, shall we? Let's do this. Let's do this, shall we? So we'll move this here. This here. This here. And this here. All right, so surrounding the dude with some more interesting cards. There's more stop cards than anything else, so that's one reason why this happens. And again, when I was practicing this, I wasn't using the cross, which is what she does. I was using a full 9 cards. So again, we have a linking card here, so this links one thing to another. And so then we get 2 linking cards, and then we get a, oopsie, now we're gonna go like way crazy, right? Alright, so there's a stop card. So I drew more cards because this links, this is a cause and effect, and this is a stop. Now this is a link. So that's a person card. It doesn't really have a thing. And then this is a motion card, so I'm going to draw something below it. And then this is another journey motion card, so I'm going to draw something below that. You know what I mean? And I'm sort of trying in a way to sort of follow the flow of the thing. Although, you don't have to do that. You just sort of have to have a sense. So now, you know what I mean? We have a little bit more interesting stuff going on. So, there's a courting, there's a meeting, a convening of a rich man. So he may be thinking about how he can kind of get connected with this dude. Now, he is above a movement card, so you could theoretically read this moving. So this, it's behind him. It's inauspicious. So this thing that he's thinking about courting this guy's favor, but it actually is going to take a long time, and it's going to end up sort of being a prison for him. What's below him is what he's feeling, and he's actually feeling like he's going somewhere new. But he has this really sort of weird road ahead of him. So malady, sickness, as a Lincoln card. Now this could suggest, again, if he's thinking about courting this guy, I would say this is more of a business relationship, because according to the book, only the main characters are partnered with each other. So there are some systems where you might use the rich gent as the main man's partner, but in her system, it's always like it would still be the main woman, and you would just read it as a man. So I would say this is probably because the rich gent represents money, or someone with money. He may be thinking about hopping to bed with this guy, in quotation marks, in this connection to sort of unite, to actually take something from him. So he may be thinking a lot about this guy and what he can get from him. What sort of like things he can sort of take. So anyway, this is a more interesting spread. So there's a lot to play with here. And that's just one example of the many things that she talks about in the book. And again, with the disclosure that I'm just sort of learning and experimenting with this stuff. So that is the Kipper, the Card Geek's Guide to Kipper, and a look at her complementary deck. Both of these are available on Amazon. I don't know if they're available in other sources yet, but I got them both on Amazon. And then, for anyone who's curious, this is the original Kipper deck. So, as always, I hope this was interesting. And stay well. Be well.